You're listening to Reignite, a podcast about coming to terms with the past. I'm MJ.
And I'm Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
And joining us for this episode is Mark Magro. Thank you so much for joining us, Mark.
Thanks for having me.
Hello, Mark. It's good to have you. Another member of the Dinosaur Machines Game Club podcast.
Now, what are you up to, 2 out of 3 now?
2 out of 3. And I don't think Dan's played past 1.
He dips in a lot. Now this is a section where I talk crap about him. If you're listening, Dan, I love you. Doesn't finish a lot of games at all.
No, he doesn't. I mean, I've talked to him about this game, and he said he does want to play it, but it's just not, the Legendary Edition isn't at the top of his list. Yeah. So if he ever plays it, we'll bring him on to be like, hey, what'd you think? But I think beyond that, Dan won't be joining us on Reignite.
Unless he gets into Andromeda for some inexplicable reason.
That's true.
I can think of a few reasons why not.
I love Andromeda.
I'm very excited to play it for the first time for this podcast. But this is not yet a podcast about Andromeda. It is about the episode that we are here to talk about today. But first, before we get into all of that stuff, Mark, tell folks a little bit about yourself and your podcast.
Sure. So, hi, I'm Mark Magro. By day, I am a middle school teacher, which is boatloads of fun. And especially right now in the summer where I'm just here. But otherwise, I'm a dad. I'm a writer. I was lucky enough to publish a book back in 2015 called Surfacing, which is very heavily inspired by Portal, if anybody wanted to check it out. And awesome. Some other people might know me is I'm one of the co-hosts of the Dinosaur Machines Game Club podcast. Probably too long of a name. Long story how we came up with it, but basically we are like a book club for video games. So we basically go around, we nominate games, 3 of us play them, myself, Dan Clona, and our other good friend, my cousin Dave Grima, and who was on a previous episode, and we just all play it and then we talk about it. And it's a nice, especially if you're really into an indie game and there's not a lot out on that game, you might happen to find a 30 to 45 minute conversation about that game. So like right now we're doing Call of the Sea this week. Cool. A lot of good things. So if you have the game in mind, just search the game. If we did it will come up, hopefully.
Awesome. Yeah, I was on a guest on a previous episode for the Messenger, which was a lot of fun. And maybe someday I'll convince you guys to bring me back so I can ruin everything.
I mean, you got to come with the game. The game is always the leader.
I know.
You got something.
I know. I haven't played a lot of indie games lately. I was playing a bunch, and like the big one I've been playing is Hades, which you guys have talked about, and like is the indie game. But like I haven't played a lot of newer indie games recently. I want to dive into more stuff.
You better be playing that visual novel.
Oh boy.
I mean, that is true. The visual novel you bought me, I am playing, but I have not finished yet.
Wait, which one?
It's called Our Life. It's by GB Patch. It is a very wholesome slice of life visual novel about growing up with a boy named Cove Holden. It can be romantic or it could be platonic, and it's very customizable.
That is the name, Cove Holden.
Right?
It is a very, very hipstery name.
Very
and when you meet his family, it pretty much plays out.
It makes sense.
His dad's like a surfer guy. It's really funny. It's very funny.
Oh boy.
It's a cute game.
Anyway, to bring us back on track, though, why don't we talk a little bit about your Mass Effect experience, Mark? How did you first discover the game? When did you first play it? All that good stuff.
Mass Effect. Oh, gosh. When did I guess, at the beginning, I self-acknowledge kind of a Sony fanboy, kind of a big PlayStation guy. So back in the PS3 era when it came out, the first one, that was one of the few. I'm like, this game looks too good. I need to play it. So I played it on PC. And I was, of course, familiar with BioWare before then. Baldur's Gate was one of kind of like my jams back in the day. KOTOR, awesome. So I knew what I was in for in terms of like a kind of a really engrossing story and characters. And yeah, like just really, really loved it. Then when 2 came out on PlayStation 3, platinum both of them. And I'm really excited now that the Legendary Edition is out. And actually, it's funny, like I was hoping that I was like, I'll be able to play through all 3 of them before I came on this podcast. Did not get there that far. I got to replay through 1. And it was actually kind of surprising how, like, mechanic-wise, that game does not hold up anymore in Mass Effect 1. It's just really a product of its time. But saying that, when you think about the series as a whole, why it's kind of, it lasted as long in terms of in the zeitgeist and spawned podcasts like this, it's just really a game that I think succeeds on really, really two big fronts for me personally. Why I really love it. One, just being like obviously the characters in the world. It's not necessarily about all that combat. It is about your team and all these cool planets, and everything's got lore, and the plot itself works well enough that if you just want to kind of go, you can go. But if I really want to know more about these Hanar, and you specifically, what are you doing? Like, all this stuff is here. I want to scan this planet. What's the history of this planet? There's so many opportunities just to get like lost in that series, and it's so easy to do so. And secondly, I think it's just Shepard. I mean, that name has so much weight for everybody who's like played it, and yet all our Shepards are different. Which, when you think about like Skyrim and like Fallout and these stories that like these really engrossing worlds where they're really giving you a lot of agency with your character. A lot of times, especially, when the series was, in its heyday, really kind of took that, it's like almost you're a silent protagonist where you have your input, but like it was really the world. It's not necessarily Shepard, or rather, whoever that character was. But for Shepard, I feel like this series has done such a great job about really giving you enough where he feels or she feels like a character, but at the same time, you have so much agency with that character that it's really just kind of kept going, and it has that weight. So now that, as we keep talking about it, it's like, oh, all our Shepards really, really mean a lot to us, even though they're starkly different.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I have 8 Shepards that I could probably vaguely remember. Our friend Liana, who was on the previous episode, has something like 35 Shepards or some nonsense, which is just crazy. But like, for sure, like something I've talked about briefly here, and I'm going to do soon, is I started as a male Shepherd in the Legendary Edition because I liked the created character looked more like a real actual human being this time around. So like,
what a plus.
I could make myself, but I don't have my 360 anymore, which is where I first played it, which I've talked about on the show. So I lost Rain Shepard, Rayne.
So cool. Not as cool as Cove, but pretty cool.
Not as cool as Cove. But like, I don't have that playthrough anymore.
Don't tempt me. I'll make a Cove Shepherd one day.
Maybe you'll make a Cove Shepherd.
I'll have the comb hair over. That's just slick.
But it was one of those things where FemShep was always my Shep until I played for the show. And I remember that FemShep so vividly. I romanced Liara all the way through. I made a lot of certain choices that I remember vividly. And so I think when I finish the male Shep playthrough I'm doing as my first playthrough for the Legendary Edition, I'm going to try and recreate that playthrough, which is ludicrous, right? I should do something different. I should do something new. But like, that Shepard is so important to me because she's not me. She's the Shepard I made, this character I created, like writing a story almost,
Oh, I totally relate to that, because now that playing through the Legendary Edition again, I played through it twice back in the day. And I had my male Shep, Marcus Shepard. I always go with the Marcus. And then I played through it again, kind of making it with the same kind of Shepard, but just kind of making different decisions. And then doing the Insanity run, which I'm so thankful. The new ones, you can get the Platinum without doing those. The kind of just, whew. But with this Legendary Edition, I was planning on doing FemShep simply because, I think, this might be controversial, but I think the general consensus is Jennifer Hale's voice performance as FemShep better than, I don't know, whoever the dude was.
Mark Meer.
Not as good. Not that I think it was a poor job, but it was funny just when I got to that time to make it and I started putting her together, I'm just like, that's not my Shepard. I know my Shepard. He's got the chin strap facial hair. He's got the scar going across it. Kind of looks like a little doofus. That's my Shepard. And like, I just had to do it. So I'm actually impressed that you have that many Shepards. It's like, I have to kind of stick to this general dude. That's who he is for me.
I get that. I mean, when we first started the podcast, this was born out of our friendship and our love of the game. Back then, I always said she and referred to Shepard as a woman because my canonical Shepard up until we started this was a FemShep. And now I've kind of been more fluid with pronouns, but like, you very much closely identify to whatever character you make. And whenever I would talk to someone new about Mass Effect, I would know the Shepard they played by the pronouns they used. And it wasn't always a man always said he and a woman always said she. It often was, but there were always also others who just played a certain gender because they preferred it. I picked Jennifer Hale back in the day because I was a fan of her work. And I was like, well, I'm going to do FemShep because I want to spend, 40 hours with Jennifer Hale. She's awesome. And like, and I've come to grow to love Mark Meer's performance, but they are very different.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah. They have very different tones.
Yeah, but isn't all weighed by, like, it's all the decisions. It's all about...
Yeah.
That's what really made he or she. It's what did you do to all those people and stuff.
That is a very excellent point, and that leads us very nicely into the next part of our introduction and getting to know you, which is to discuss the choices that you've made in your most ideal playthrough. The choices that your shepherd made.
Most ideal. If there is such a thing.
So let's start with Paragon and Renegade. Do you have a preference? Do you lean more one or the other?
I mean, it's boring, but I feel like Renegade is a general. Like, it's got more one-liners. It's a little bit edgier, but I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it usually just comes off you're just kind of being a jerk a lot of times when you're Renegade. So my shep is, I'll say, mostly Paragon. Okay. But then it's always kind of interesting that when you do hit one of those like heavy decisions, you think this is the quote unquote right thing to do, but then it's like, oh, 20 points Renegade. I'm like, really? Oh, didn't see that coming. So that's actually one of the things I really appreciate about Mass Effect. Like, you know, morality systems were always kind of huge back then, but like the Paragon Renegade system really does have a lot of nuance to it where it's not necessarily good or bad. It's
right.
I almost kind of feel like sometimes it's almost this like kicking the can down the road and letting things play out as opposed to being the one to make a call on this sometimes, which
kind of
tricky. Yeah,
I would consider Paragon to be diplomatic, whereas Renegade is slightly more chaotic and more about personal survival, I think.
Yeah, and especially like for kind of the big branching story arcs, it's just like you're making the decision for this. Like, this is not gonna... We're not gonna try to appease all sides. I see what needs to be done, and I'm doing it. Boom. Yeah.
Totally.
What about your preferred class?
Infiltrator. And I always flirt with other ideas, but I'm like... My playstyle, I'm always big on a sniper rifle. Every game in general, if I can snipe on, I'm like, ooh, that's fun. Even though I shockingly have a really bad aim, but yet somehow, I don't know, it's like I like the concept of playing guitar, but I can't play one. And I think for Mass Effect, that is always like, especially with the way a lot of boards are laid out where you have all the cover. I like being in the back row. I like sending my teammates to certain spots, and I like sniping from afar. The tech stuff is kind of nice, and you know, like warp and all those things are kind of fun, but then I could bring people to do those sort of things for me, so I can still do it. So yeah, Infiltrator all the way. Every time.
What happened to the Rachni Queen?
Oh, the Rachni Queen. I mean, I feel like they set you up to let her live, because you do fight the minions in that board, but then once you actually have that conversation, and I apologize, you're probably hearing my 5-year-old run back and forth upstairs, probably if that's stopping. Like, I was never kind of swayed to kill her simply because, you know, it was always like her wording that always kind of swayed me. She's also that singing. It's like, oh, their songs and their colors. It's so like poetic, even though it's like she's like then controlling that, you know, alien in front of you. It's all kind of jargony, but I always let her live. I can't, you know, the other kind of
not a fan of genocide.
I mean, genocide generally bad. I think we all could agree on.
Yes, correct.
But I guess to play devil's advocate with that spot, there's always a thought, especially because, you know, just speaking in general with a lot of these decisions, that the kind of negative side to that thing is always things that you personally as Shepard are not going to ever experience. So it's like, if this really does hit the fan again with them, I mean, I'm probably not going to be around for it. But, you know, in general, I think there's nothing unsympathetic about that queen once you meet her, so I think you gotta let her go.
What about your Vermeer survivor? Who did you choose?
Oh boy. First playthrough, I let Ashley live, and I regret it. Not that I think she's bad. I think Kaden is more interesting as a character. However, in my first playthrough, as a young 20-something foolish man, Ashley was the pretty one. So it's like, I'm in love with Ashley. Can't let her die. But in subsequent playthroughs, you gotta save Kaden. It's just, I think he, even with his text tree, I think actually works out way better. And actually in the latest one in Legendary, foolishly, it was sealed for me immediately because I wanted the trophy for his skills, which I had no other way to doing it. So I was like, I have to let you live. How else am I going to use these attack 25 times or whatever it was? So originally Ashley, but I immediately regret it. Kaden all the way. Hashtag Kaden.
Excellent.
All right. What about the council? Did you save them or let them die?
I've never saved them. Ever.
Wow. Wow. I love that.
And not that I think they're bad at all. And this is actually one of the times where the game kind of sets you up a little bit, where it's giving you an out, because it's not like I chose, let them die.
Right.
They're giving that option.
You choose not to save them, which is not the same thing.
I remember that. I choose to keep my priorities in place. And what is the priority of that time? It's not them. We have this giant Reaper here. Let's focus on that. So, yeah, I've now played through that sequence, I think, 3 times. And no, never saved them. I have no regrets about it, quite frankly. And I think it's just in general, like, their role in the story is always interesting, because they play that kind of, guys in the little booth. They're kind of like, well, this is what you did, and this is why it's good and this is bad. But I think, and even kind of just like talking about the series in general, but this idea of control and who's in charge and who's making decisions, that they always kind of struck me as kind of not the worst of like bureaucracy, but it's just that when there's things that need to get done, and I'm telling you that, they have in their role be judicious and diplomatic and weigh all the sides. And especially in that moment, it just kind of feels like we need less of that and more of action at this point. So, no, they've never lived and they never will. No regrets.
All right.
All right.
Speaking of the council, who do you appoint as humanity's representative? Udina or Anderson?
I saw this was a question on here, and I'm shocked it is. Who picks Udina? Why would you do that? The voice actor is so purposeful. Is cursing aloud on this pod? We keep it clear.
Yes, you may curse.
He's such an asshole.
Yes.
Why would then, in this moment of, wow, we're getting a seat at the table, let's pick Udina? No, come on.
You're
Tell me.
not wrong.
Thank you. I was about to say, it's like, Anderson is the clear choice. That is one of the few choices in this game where you do not have to think twice about.
You have passed the vibe check.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
One of the vibe check questions.
Yeah. Along with, is genocide bad, which you said it is.
Genocide bad.
But no, it's also, I'm laughing because in our playthrough, I did the I don't want to get involved in politics route, which picks Udina. Like, if you pick the indecision between them, he gets appointed. And I did that, I think, either during or right before the Trump presidency. And so I immediately regretted it even more so, because I was like, oh, this is telling in a way that I don't like. This is bad.
See what happens when you stand idly by.
There are no bystanders in this scenario. You got to take a stand.
Yeah.
I just like making fun of you for it.
That's fair. What about our good friend Rex? Do you keep him alive? Do you protect him, or do you let Ashley take the shot?
I've never let Ashley take the shot. So then, of course, I'll watch it afterwards. I'm like, wow, it's cold-blooded. And that is another situation where your indecision will just have a decision be made.
Yeah.
And Rex, I know a lot of people love Rex. I'm not huge on Rex as a character. Garrus kind of fixed that mold in my team where you're kind of like a badass, but you're still kind of fall in line with me, where he's more of a kind of a loose cannon, so to speak. But the whole Genophage storyline, as it kind of plays out through the things, it's so crappy. And that whole big, because like in general, that's what, again, when you think about like actual combat over those kind of janky, whenever you fight a Krogan, it's like, sugar, there's a Krogan coming, and they regen, and they're always a pain. So then when they have those conversations about, well, this is why we did it to them, to kind of make sure that, they don't take over the galaxy. Like, there is that fear, almost like with the Rachni. It's like always that fear. It's like, oh, this could get really bad, because I also know Rex, and he's going to do what Rex is going to do. But at the same time, he's been in your team, he's been loyal, and making the decisions that you would hope for him to make. So, and especially given the circumstances where, he's getting used, but at the same time, like, this is so much bigger than him, you gotta let Rex live. So I've never let him die at that point. And that's another reason too, because I don't think you get for like the hard blue and hard red, like, you need to be kind of one way in Paragon or Renegade pretty sure and have those options, right? think so.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, unless you got his armor.
Yeah, if you get his armor, which is one of the side missions, then that also gives you bonuses to that.
Yeah,
There we go.
then you don't need to bother with charm or intimidate.
And that's always kind of my secret, like in like especially that playthrough. It's like always like you can't really waver between one of the two, and that's always one of the moments like, well, I need to be able to set Rex on that beach. I got to have one of those choices available. I did not know about the armor. That's good. Anyway.
Okay, cool. So what about the Geth? Do you kill or do you rewrite the heretics?
Your expression before you even said anything, for everyone who can't see, Mark, he did the heavy sigh, is literally the epitome of this question for every guest we bring on.
Right.
I love that it never changes.
So I'm not crazy. This is one of the hardest choices, I think, throughout the entire game.
Correct.
I was listening to the episode that just came out. I forget, Carter, Allie Carter?
Yes, Carter Hallett.
And it was funny. They made, I think it was her husband that made the comments like when they were talking about with their Alexa and how they treat their Alexa. And I was listening to that. It's actually in my house, it's kind of funny. We're the exact opposite. We are always absurdly polite to our Alexa. It's simply because, like, I know my daughter is listening and watching, and I'm like, I want to model that. And this is just back when I'm like, as a person who teaches children, sometimes really like shocked by how rude kids can be sometimes. And secretly in the back of my mind, I'm like, I wonder how your parents talk to their Alexa. Is there a correlation here? So I say all this because, when you think about the Geth, when we have all these conversations about races and genocide and these decisions we're making, I know it's not like to the scale with them, but it's always kind of the caveat. It's like, well, they're not like alive, so what's the big deal? But then when you think about the whole concept of indoctrination, which is a big running theme throughout the series, and like, who's in control, who's making the decisions, that was always the thing that kind of stuck me for them. It's that didn't feel, if I'm going to really treat them like I treat everyone else, that didn't feel right just because I have the ability to rewrite them. It's like, that is brainwashing them. That is then, taking away their agency. On the flip side, it's like, well, then you just kill them. Then you just, they don't even have the choice. And what I always thought was interesting from the writing standpoint is you would think then it's like, okay, I know how Tally's going to feel in this situation. But Legion is surprisingly kind of like chill, that he doesn't have He
has no opinion.
And I was really hoping like, Legion, what do you want me to do? And he's just like, okay.
It's 51% versus 49.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
It's just like strict percentages. I'm actually, that is one of the things as I get back to that one where I'm kind of like, should I go the other way? But in my first playthrough, I killed them because I thought at the end of the day, it wasn't fair to me to do the thing that the Reapers do, that Cerberus eventually does, where we are now taking away the agency of people. And there are more Geth out there, so I'm not #Team Genocide wiping out their entire species. Like for me, the way I justified it was just like, what's the difference between me doing that and they are running a rampant and I just run through their base and I just wipe them all out, because that's what I do as Shepherd. So that's the way I kind of justified it in my head. Feels kind of icky, but at the same time, I don't think I could take that away from them in terms of trying to make them into something they're not.
I love that every time someone answers this, we get a different explanation for similar answers, too.
Yeah. And that's always fun about these things. It's a lot of these decisions are really kind of the same decision, kind of morally gray, but then it's, for us, in that perspective, we then need to kind of find the little nooks and crannies that we like enough that we can use it to justify what we want to do. And it's funny how then, in that, comparing it to the Arachnite Queen, it's like, well, I can understand why I want to kill them all in this scenario, but for the Arachnite, I want to go the other way. And really, it's kind of the same thing. But at the same time, I could find justifications to go the way I feel at that exact moment.
For sure. The other major Mass Effect 2 decision, the collector base. Do you blow it up or do you give it to the elusive man?
Who's given this to... Is that another really controversial... No, you blow it up.
You've passed the final vibe check.
It's a demonic hellscape full of goops. No, you blow that thing up. And, I'm very much like in the Mass Effect 3 mindset, so I know where that but I don't remember from 2 if ever you're really like, oh, the elusive man. He's a great guy. He's really one that we feel good about and no hesitations working with. No, he's a schemer, and there's no way you could go through everything you go through on that thing and think there's a lot of value in this place. We're at the brink of a black hole. Let's bring this to the mix. Yeah, no, sorry, get rid of it.
We have a catchphrase on this podcast, and it's "fuck the elusive man."
Fuck the elusive man.
He's pretty terrible. Great performance. Who is that? Martin Sheen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Martin Sheen.
Great job, and especially like that I guess we're going to talk about because we actually get there in this mission. It's like the iconic.
We will talk about how terrible he is consistently. But before we do, let's talk about romance.
Sure. So first playthrough again, putting myself in the mindset. I was a man in my young 20s, very foolish, not a lot of depth to me as a person. We went Ashley, Mass Effect 1, and we went Miranda 2. Nothing is interesting about these.
Basic.
Very basic.
So basic.
Very well aware that I was basic. Subsequent playthroughs, and now we are Team Liara. She is the best.
Yeah. All right.
I like her. I always liked her kind of. She's so smart, but then at the same time so naive. And then so as you kind of like bridge those gaps with her, and she's always just. And actually, the thing that always brought it home with me, and I think that's at 3. You have that moment with her where she like shows you Oblivion, and like the background kind of fades and everything. And I just thought that was like I think that's 3. It was like the most romantic thing ever. So I remember that, and I was like, oh, she's the best. And I think once I get to 2, I'm actually very also interested. I want to pursue Tally. There's something about her being behind that mask. It's just like, you are mysterious. And I like her personality. So I'm going to see how it kind of feel once I play through that again. But that's where my headspace is right now. Let's not be basic. Let's mess around with these aliens because they got stuff going on.
Yeah, there you go.
Tally is a bi icon, and no one can tell me otherwise.
There we go. Although, from that scene in the first one, does she have nipples? Unconfirmed. Can't tell. I was always kind of curious. It's like, these aliens are basically human bodies. We're just getting along with this. But then, that was one thing I noticed. I had a very long conversation with Dave and Dan about, how is this working? Anyway, continue, please.
Anyway. Why don't we get into the summary for this episode?
Yes, let's do it.
It is time for our first step of the end game. Shepard strategizes with Hackett to send the Fifth Fleet after Kronos Station, the elusive man's base. In doing so, the Crucible will be vulnerable and we will need to move quickly. EDI insists on going with Shepard in order to handle any hacking needed, but could it also be because EDI has her own score to settle? The squad fights their way through, stopping to watch security footage of the elusive man revealing his true motives and personality. Once at the elusive man's inner sanctum, Shepard and crew discover that not only is the Citadel the catalyst that they've been looking for, but the elusive man has warned the Reapers of this, causing them to relocate the Citadel to Earth where they can protect it. Kai Lang then shows up for a final confrontation.
Bum, bum, bum. Yeah, there we go. Why is this mission significant to you?
I mean, this is kind of the big kind of payoff for the whole Cerberus storyline, where they revive you in 2. You're kind of reluctantly working with them. Their reputation is, kind of really fits that renegade mold where you can kind of see what they have admirable goals. Humankind, I'm a human, we're trying to just kind of making sure that we're doing okay. But then the more and more you kind of unravel it, of course, you guys are terrible. And you're just basically meddling in things you should not be meddling in. And for this mission, it's finally that kind of nice payoff to now you finally, because you talk to Elusive Man so much, you see him in his chair with the star behind him, looking just, wow, you're pretty impressive. And you finally get there. And I love this mission a lot for that payoff to finally get to his office. But then, all the reveals about who he is, what their thought process is, and then really setting up for that final battle when you get back to, Earth, and it's now time to kind of wrap all this up. It's very, very particular with that moment of, and this is probably getting ahead of ourselves, I'm sorry, but this is like one of my favorite lines throughout the series. This is one of the reasons, like, oh, I want to do that mission. When you're talking to the Prothean hologram, And he's just telling you, like, it's done. This is over. Take your info, pack it away. Mabel will get on the next cycle. And Shepard's just like, no, we got this. We're doing this. It's like, that was one of those moments that just felt like it had so much weight, and there's so many things going around. You could just feel like this is it. This is the time where we can really start packing it in, because it's not going to work out. But just that continued drive of, yes, now we're going to fight them. We're going to beat them this time. This time is going to be different. Like, it always, even just like talking about it, just gives me like chills about it. It's just like the setup before the big one.
Yeah, for sure. So we have no check-ins, but we do have a moment of romance before we go off to blow up Cerberus and everything they stand for.
Before we talk about that,
Yeah.
I have other thoughts. First thing I want to say is it was kind of trippy reverting back to this save from playing Mass Effect Legendary.
Same. Yeah. I am in Mass Effect 3 on my Legendary Edition playthrough, but I'm not this far into it. I am up to
I got to this point.
Oh, did you? Really?
I did. I stopped right before this point because I was like, I don't want to play it twice in a row.
You're going to get confused.
I'll get so confused. So I stopped and I went back to, like, the playthrough for this show.
Yeah.
Because they are slightly different, and I'm trying to stay true. Trying to stay authentic.
I gotta just massive kudos to both of you. I have no idea. I can barely play more than one game at a time, let alone the same game with multiple angles. Keep going.
Well, it helps that the Legendary is for fun and not for note-taking in academia and analysis.
Yeah, and for me it's a little easier because I have the PC version of the original, so I have them all on PC, whereas the Legendary Edition I bought on the PS5,
That's true,
PS4,
you did.
because I want to sit on my couch while I play Mass Effect forever, so,
That's fair.
That whole thing. But yeah, no, I'm only up to curing the genophage, so there was no confusion for me, but it was still a little weird to see the graphical differences. I didn't think I would, but I did.
That's cool that you get that, like, contrast, though, because, as I was playing through 1, I was like, They know they did a lot of work with this, but this looks exactly like I thought it did. Is it different? Anyway.
Right, it was so slightly trippy.
Yeah.
Like, this looks pretty much the same, but it was like everything in your life had been moved 1 inch to the left.
Yeah.
And you start tripping on things.
Exactly, and you're just like, everything looks exactly the same, but it's so subtly wrong. And I don't know why. It was a very strange experience. As Matt said, we don't really have any check-ins. I did walk in on Tally and Garrus having some fun banter, comparing missions, and just, like, being pals. And I'm sure if you don't romance either of them, it's more, like, it has more a flirtatious tone. But for me, I'm like, look at my friends being pals. Look at my boyfriend and my girlfriend hanging out, chatting. I love them so much. But yes, as Matt was gearing up to say, we do have a moment of romance, but really it's also a moment of introspection for Shepard.
My Shepard is burning the midnight oil, looking at data pads, and just trying to figure out if he's missed anything when Caden shows up with a bottle and 2 glasses. And just saunters in with that Canadian look in his eyes, like he always has.
Tell me more about this wonderful date you probably had with Caden.
When you say it that way, it sounds like your date with Garrus wasn't wonderful.
I will tell you when you talk about Caden.
Okay. So Caden shows up with drinks, and Shepard's kind of just really still anxious and worried that he missed something. They can't sleep, and so they have a drink, and Caden's like, look, we're just going to have a drink. I just want to chill and hang out. And then, of course, moments later, when he's kissing you, he's like, maybe I didn't want to just have one drink. Aha!
Oh, Caden.
And yeah, so he, like, you're talking about how, what if I miss something? What if it's not enough? And Caden spends most of the conversation reassuring you, and he's like, look, you've done everything you could, regardless of how this goes, regardless of what happens next. There's nothing anyone else could have done better, and there's nothing you could have done differently. And so that's really fun to hear. I love both of the performers here. I think this is what's brought me around to liking Mark Meer as much. I've said this several times this season. He really leveled up in the 3rd game. I think giving him this vulnerability with Caden also levels it up quite a bit. And yeah, and then, of course, next thing you know, they're both in their boxers, rolling around in a bed. Man boobs galore.
Rolling around in the bed in boxers. Yeah,
it is funny. It's funny though. I'm curious. I want to report back to our resident gay friend Ken Shepard to ask what he feels about this sex scene. Because I don't know. As a queer person and a bisexual, I looked at all the rolling around and kissing and going, "Why are they rolling around so much? Who does that when they make out? Is this a gay thing? Because it's not a bisexual thing.
Is this a gay thing?
I mean,
is this what the gays are like?
Gays, do you roll a lot? No.
No, I mean what it is they wanted to make it look intimate without it being explicit, which is par for the course with these games. They get like they broach it, but they don't really go through with it. But yeah, and we'll talk about this more after MJ's date. But like then we fall asleep and have another nightmare, which I noticed some things about. But before we get to that nightmare, MJ, how was your date with Garrus? It seems like you are unhappy about it.
I'm unhappy because BioWare are a bunch of fucking cowards who are afraid of Turian bodies. I'm so angry. Like, you got, like, a full-on makeout session. I got, like...
Yeah, Ken, what is Garrus... Does Garrus ever have a shirt off? Does that happen? No.
No!
Nothing
even remotely close.
Well, they did learn... I forget the character's name in Andromeda, but it was like he had, like, bones... They were like,
don't reveal anything. And
I haven't played it yet.
Yeah.
Aliens will take their shirts off in the next one. So if that makes you feel better about future,
that is true. I know exactly who you're talking about, and that romance scene is chef's kiss.
That shows growth, one might say.
Yes, but they're still afraid of Turians.
Yeah,
they're so afraid of Turians, and I don't know why. But Garrus shows up, and he asks Shepard if she wants some company, and then it just fades to black. That's it. Like, we get a smooch, fade to black, and then nightmare.
That's how bad the night went.
I don't remember this full cutscene, so I wasn't sure how much of a moment there would be continued after the nightmare. So I was just like, I got 10 seconds, basically, of Garrus showing up to be like, hey, I'm here to keep you some company. Smooch, fade to black, that's it.
I really do wonder if that has to do with just the general design of Turians, where, like, with the other aliens, how they... Like, I'm sure if you could romance Rex, it would probably be something because he looks like he's a block. It's like, how could a block move in that way? I do wonder if there is something to that, because when you think about their suits, it's so, like, top-heavy for Turians.
Right.
I don't know. I wonder if there's really just kind of a practicalness where it's like, we can't make this not look dumb. So let's just keep the shirt on.
But there are ways to have intimacy without it having to be sexual. Like, it didn't need to be sex. It didn't need to be, like, a full-on makeout session. It could have been, like, let's sit on the couch together. Let's have a couple of drinks. You lay your head on my shoulder and, like, let's just talk about the first time we met. Let's have a moment.
Especially when you think about the history of Garrus and how much things they've been together by that point. Like, that
exactly.
is... Yeah.
It didn't have to be physical. It didn't have to be sexual. Intimacy can be bred through many different ways. And I feel like Shakarian fans everywhere were failed. BioWare failed us. And then we have a nightmare.
Yeah, this is the culmination of all the nightmares we've been having throughout the game, the small child. This time, though, I heard the voices of not only Mordin and Ash, but I also heard Legion this time, too, saying things to me and whispering things, which I don't remember this in my my subsequent playthroughs before this, or my previous playthroughs, rather. I don't remember hearing the other character voices in the nightmares, but they're clear as day now. And yeah, it ends with you catching up to the child who's now kneeling with a version of you in your casual, like, military uniform. And then there's the fire again, and then you wake up from the nightmare.
Do you wake up alone?
No, I wake up with Caden.
Like, in bed with you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Garrus isn't in bed with Shepard. Garrus is sitting, like, off to the side reading a data pad. And I'm like, how jarring to have a nightmare and wake up to an empty bed when it definitely wasn't empty when I fell asleep.
Yeah.
It'd be better at least he had a mug. It was like, oh, you're up.
Like, why are you doing this to me, BioWare? BioWare doesn't like me specifically.
But yeah, and Shepard wakes up and Caden wakes up and Shepard continues to harp on, am I doing enough? And Caden's like, look, among anything else, you're building hope. You're giving people hope. And that's more important. That's one of the most important things you can be doing right now. And so that was comforting. Yeah, Caden is pretty soft with Shepard, which I expected. He's our marshmallow for a reason. Caden's a pretty much
He's
a soft boy.
He's a toasted marshmallow.
He's a toasted marshmallow, and we appreciate his emotional comfort of Shepard. So that's always fun to see.
Garrus also gives Shepard a pep talk, reassuring her that, like, you have literally done everything you could possibly do. No one could be doing more than you. You need to give yourself a break, because if you don't, you're gonna die. And it brought me back to, like, there was a lack of intimacy here.
Yeah.
And it was very disappointing. We could have talked about the future. We could have talked about what we'll do when we win the war. Like, meh.
Yeah, something a little bit beyond them, just something for them connecting as people. Or person and Turian, I guess.
Yeah. And it's so strange considering the care they took with Caden's romance, especially since this is the first time Caden is romanceable by male Shepard in the whole series, is only in the third game. Yeah, I don't know. It's very weird. I will find out what Tali's romance is like in my Legendary Edition playthrough. But as I understand, that is also disappointing, but I don't know. I've not done it before, so we'll see.
It's all about what's unsaid, right? We could just paint it in our minds what happened in that Fade to Black. It was beautiful.
I'll just write some fan fiction about it. It'll be fine.
There you go.
Anyway, so the attack begins.
Yep, the fleet shows up and they give you cover so you can approach the base. And Steve, of course, intrepid Steve, takes us in
Steve.
On our shuttle. Of course, there's resistance, and we crash land in the hangar, and we have to find a way on to the rest of the station.
You skipped a part that I wanted to talk about.
Oh.
As you often do.
I always do. It's just kind of, that's how it goes.
Matt's just so eager to get to the meat stuff that he wants to talk about.
The ship launch?
I wanted to talk about how Edie not demands, but tells you, like, I should go with you. You need me to come with you. And then you're on the bridge, and you tell Edie to meet you at the shuttle, and Joker gets real upset for a second, like, I'm sorry, what? No? How about no? What if they have, like, something prepared for you? You don't know. He's very unhappy with this decision. And also, Edie, you didn't bother to tell him that you were going.
Yeah. Which is like a relationship no.
Edie, no! And I'm sure Edie's response would be, he tried to stop me.
Right.
Are they, like, openly dating by that point? Or are they, because I remember the thing between them, but I didn't know it was like, oh, you're doing this.
Yeah, they're openly dating by that point, more or less, depending on how you judge it. But yeah, what I do love is that after that moment, and when Edie walks away and Joker accepts it, he's like, you better protect her. And Shepard's like, same to you, to protect everyone else.
Yeah, keep her safe.
Do your job, Joker. I'll do mine.
But yes, we get Cortez and Shepard operating in tandem, and oof, there is one crash landing.
Yes, we land hard. And we're immediately under attack from Cerberus. The combat in this whole section on the station is pretty fluid at this point. I'm pretty much maxed out for all of my Vanguard stuff, and I'm throwing biotic Hadoukens and charging it to people and sending them flying pretty much constantly.
Man, I got into this fight and I forgot I wasn't a Vanguard anymore.
That's right. In this game, you're not playing as a Vanguard. Yeah.
I'm a Sentinel.
That's
like
right.
this
oh,
works.
No.
I fucked up so bad. I'm like, why am I not charging? What is happening?
Your armor just keeps turning on and off. Everyone's looking at you like you're a Christmas tree. Like, what is Shepard doing?
Why am I so stupid? The other Shepard has the brain cell right now.
But yeah, the combat here is pretty straightforward at this point. Par for the course, fighting Cerberus at this point. Nothing really new. But as Mark alluded to earlier, I do love this moment where, classic Shepard. Well, we can't get in. Well, Edie suggests we just blow it up instead. Let's fire a ship at it. It's like, which is pretty much Shepard's plan for everything. It's like, oh, can we not get in? Let's blow it up.
Launching a fighter at the central lab is such chaotic energy.
It really is.
And also it's a huge fuck you to the elusive man.
I'm literally crashing your stuff in your ship right now. What are you going to do?
Destroying literally all of your toys.
as we fight through the station, once we've made a giant hole through the middle of it, the combat isn't that diverse throughout it. We have all of the Cerberus forces now, from the ninja characters to the snipers to all of the different engineers and everything. Pretty much the whole crew at this point. We've leveled up to every type of enemy. What's interesting about this section is we get two different moments with Edie while she's hacking where we get stuff revealed. The first section is we get insight into how, like, the process to bring Shepard back and the things that Elusive Man did to make that happen. Interviews with the Elusive Man and scientists talking about how this is impossible and all the things they had to do. When you're going through the videos, did Garrus have anything significant to say about it? Because Kaden had a few things.
Yeah, Garrus said a couple of things. Shepard starts to have this kind of existential crisis about having been rebuilt. Like, am I really who I am? Or am I just like some advanced VI who thinks I'm Commander Shepard? And Garrus is there to support you and be like, no, you're you. Like, please don't spiral. And also points out, like, you were boxed in. There was literally nothing you could do about this. He put you in such a bad position that the only thing you could do was what you actually did.
Yeah, Kaden says a similar thing when you say, what if I'm not really me? And Kaden goes, you're real enough for me. Which is like, aw, somebody.
This is so much a better relationship than others. See, I think that was an interesting kind of that exchange in particular, because I kind of bring about, like, you guys have mentioned the nightmares before and how they were like a rolling thing through 3. That I kind of almost wish they did more with that, because that is such an interesting concept where now you really started thinking he was rebuilt or she was rebuilt. So, when is that official line? It's like, am I even who I think I am anymore? And, like, that idea again of who's controlling what, who's pulling the strings, and the whole series kind of feels like you're going back a layer, back a layer, back a layer, until you're getting to who is doing all these things. And I guess you guys didn't talk about the indoctrination theory, or have you guys gotten to all that stuff?
And we've talked about it a little bit, but
we've dabbled that, there is an indoctrination theory, but BioWare has denounced it as non-canon.
And it always breaks my heart, because I'm like, that was almost more fun, and that conversation always made me think about, it's like, well, maybe you really aren't Shepard, what you think you're doing. Maybe you are being manipulated and controlled. But anyway, I think that was one little point in this vision. When I rewatched it, I was like, oh yeah, I do remember that. And now knowing where everything goes and what was said about it, it's like I almost felt like that was like almost a missed opportunity to maybe do a little bit more with that throughout the game.
A lot of these logs that we watch kind of reinforce the things that we've been saying about the Elusive Man since his introduction in Mass Effect 2 and Season 2 of Reignite. He intentionally does things to make you go along with his plan. He pulls in friendly faces that he knows that you'll find sympathetic, like Gabby and Ken, who are not Cerberus recruits, who are specifically wanting to work for Shepard and not Cerberus. Dr. Chakwas, who was there for you on Normandy SR1. Joker, who you died to save. Like, these are all sympathetic faces that are going to pull you in and make you loyal to at least this mission, if not Cerberus overall.
Yeah, even Kelly Chambers is brought in because she's a kind, friendly face, and that was her purpose, which is what it seemed like in that, and it's confirmed here, like literally hired to rope you along or try to.
And there were two options for what Shepard could say, and I didn't like either of them. One was saying it had to be done, and one was saying I was wrong. And the Paragon one was I was wrong, and the Renegade was it had to be done. And I didn't like either of these because my Shepard at every turn stood up to the Elusive Man and stood up to Cerberus and repeatedly said, no, I don't give a shit about you or your organization. I'm here to do one thing, and then I'm out, and then I take your ship and I go. That's it. I take your money, I take your people, and I'm out. And, like, my Shepard was always skeptical of Cerberus and never once said Cerberus is doing good work. Cerberus is doing the right thing. No, just I agree with you on this one point. This does not make us friends.
No, yeah. There are moments towards the wrap up of this game where the options don't feel like enough, especially considering how much time we spent with these characters, right?
There's
And
a lack of nuance.
right. And I feel like that was going to happen on some level, right? There's so many moving parts, and I'm more forgiving of it now, but it's definitely also more glaringly obvious now.
So yeah, I wonder now. It would be one of those things that they were making the Legendary Edition. I wonder if there was the temptation. It's like we can go in because we see everything together, and where people kind of all the opportunities. Maybe if they were tempted to like tweak and change things to kind of add a little bit more connection and nuance to those things.
I mean, they've said if it were a remake, it'd be a different story, but it also wouldn't have come out for another 5 years or something, like, and that's why it was mostly a remaster, is because once you change one thing, you're changing a lot of things, and it just kind of, it becomes, they're building a new game.
Right.
But I do like that we do get this insight with the Elusive Man to continue to see how much of a shit he is, because he's a shit.
You see more of it when we see the footage regarding Edie.
Yep. And so after this, there's more battling through the station. Again, a lot more of what we've been doing up until this point. And then we get to another door where Edie conveniently needs time to hack the door. So we get to look at another log. And these logs are about an AI that escapes the Luna base on the moon. And I love this revelation. I love this revelation that a tiny, very spooky mission on the moon, that mission to this day I think is so close to just a horror game because of the no music, the weird sounds, that no one's there, there's no voices, none of your party members are talking. That whole mission, that VI, or that AI that it became, ends up being Edie. And we find out through these logs that the Elusive Man captured that AI and shackled it in hopes that no one would free it. And also part of his plan was that, Shepard or Joker would never trust this AI. They would never unshackle it. Joke's on you!
Aha!
Yeah. Get wrecked. And, like, the Elusive Man is constantly annoyed with the gendering and naming of Edie. Like, no. This is a machine. Stop giving it a name. And I'm just like, I would like to stab you in the eye, just so you know. And I can't wait to get the opportunity. I'm gonna just stab you straight in the eye. It's gonna feel good. I hate him so much. And Edie has protected the Normandy constantly without saying a word about it. Yep. Cerberus kept trying to shut the Normandy down. And Edie was just like, haha, have all of this porn. All of it. In the entire galaxy.
What was that? It's like a terabyte. It's something beyond that.
Like zettabytes.
Zettabyte.
Yeah. and yeah, when you ask her about it, she's like, well, it was all jokers. That was a joke. I love all of that. And like, I love that that's kind of like the final evolution of this character and her development. And I forgot until we got to this point that we get that here. And it's possible in my first playthrough I didn't do the Luna mission, and so you don't get a lot of this background. Doesn't really mean anything if you haven't done the Luna mission. But it being so fresh in my head from this playthrough, especially since I just did it again in the Legendary Edition, where I posted for the umpteenth time that it's a spooky as hell mission. This just is so cool. I love this. I love that this all pays off, and immediately, like MJ, it makes me hate the Elusive Man even more.
Such a dick.
She mutters under her breath, dick.
I hate him. I just hate him so much. I can't adequately express. There is absolutely nothing of note about the fighting, so I just move on straight to console number 3. They're indoctrinating loyal volunteers. The troopers are fitted with Reaper tech, and they reveal that they have also implanted the Elusive Man with Reaper tech. We remember how well that worked for Saren, right?
Yeah. We've had many conversations about how, especially in the remaster now, he looks like a bad guy. The dude looks like a robot. He's not good. Saren is a bad guy. And same thing with the Elusive Man, especially with the better graphics. It's like in 3, it's like this guy looks like a robot. He's not well. This is a problem. Look at his eyes. This is not the eyes of a man who is not being manipulated by the Reapers.
Yeah, and the kind of playing it, what you said earlier about like the whole importance of this mission, like seeing those logs in particular, and then just kind of have the conversation plays out afterwards. It's just so, I don't know. It's what it's like. It's so obvious. It's like, don't you understand? Like, this is not like you're just watching these giant machines wreak havoc across the Milky Way. Doesn't just any logic? It's like we should just show them that they cannot be controlled. They cannot be contained. But at that point, it's just like everyone's so far gone It's like all you can do is triple down on this strategy of getting to the top and using whatever you can to get there, even if, like the question about Shepard, is Shepard anymore? Like, are any of you who you originally were before this?
Right.
It's just it's just the lowest point for like your viewpoint of this organization. It's just like you were doing everything wrong that you possibly could do.
We came first circle to Mass Effect 1 again. In Mass Effect 1, we thought they were the lowest of the low.
Basically.
And hey, look, we're back there again.
Yeah.
Back to when they were hilariously incompetent. The Elusive Man's office is incredibly creepy because it's empty and it's like these black glass floor tiles that reflect the ceiling and this large picture window that looks out into open space. I hate it.
It's just this giant room, and Shepard walks in and then stops on the disc where when you video chatted with the Elusive Man, you would appear, and kind of looks down.
I noted that too.
Which I think is interesting, like taking a moment to understand where they are and where they came from. And yeah, you start looking into trying to find the Prothean VI. Edie starts getting to work, and then of course, behind you, everyone's jackass space president. The Elusive Man shows up and tries to scold you for breaking into his home.
He also has the audacity to talk to Edie.
Yeah, like you
How
leave
dare
her alone. She has nothing to do with you anymore. He says he's disappointed in her, and it's like, fuck you, dude. You shackled her. What are you talking about? And so, yeah, he talks down to you. He's like, Shepard, we can still do this, blah, blah, blah. You get a chance to take a Renegade or a Paragon action here. I, of course, took the Paragon action to try and appeal to his betterment. Because, like me, my Shepard will always try to still take the good route. Even if I feel like a cause is lost, I will try and reach out. And of course, it doesn't mean anything. And he blah, blah, blah. You're wrong, Shepard. Blah, blah, blah. We can control them. Like, that's the whole conversation. He's just, the Elusive Man's gone. He's not, he's convinced that he can control them and be one with them. And it's pretty sad.
Then that kind of plays a whole idea of what 3 is. 3 is all about bringing the war assets, bringing everyone together, trying to get everyone as desperately you can onto the same page. So yeah, like, I always played that conversation the same way because you always have to at least try. It's like always, we've all written you off in the back of our minds, but this time it's like maybe, just maybe, as we're sitting in your chair, we can appeal to you and just look what's happening. One last ditch effort, so at least you tried.
I do appreciate that the Elusive Man does start his conversation by saying, "You're in my chair." I found that very funny.
We're finally in the spot. I love that office. I think it's the great. If I ever was become a space president, I would design it exactly the same way.
Love that.
Was You'll Never Change the Renegade option? I thought it was the Paragon. Whoops.
No, I thought You'll Never Change was the Renegade option.
It sounds like
it might have been. It sounds like something I'd say, though. Like, I hate you.
Yeah, that's true.
You are a violent monster. And the Elusive Man is like, you never really believed in us. I'm like, you're right. I didn't. Accurate.
The Elusive Man, being annoyed with you for the last time, walks off and disappears, and we are left to have a conversation with the Prothean VI.
Vendetta?
Yes, I believe it's Vendetta is the name. And we find out, gasp, the Citadel is the catalyst.
I don't know why anyone is fucking surprised.
Seriously. We knew it was Reaper Tech. It's like...
It just seems like when you think about the writing, like if they had all their things on Post-its, it's like, well, what could it be? And there's always the Citadel in the corner. I'm like, could we use it again? Let's bring it back.
Like, it makes sense narratively because the Citadel is what the Reapers intended to use as the forefront of their invasion, right? It was going to be the point where their invasion began. But the Protheans fucked that up for them. Yeah. So they couldn't use it as their starting point for the invasion. So to use it against them in this weapon for their destruction feels very poetic.
Yes. And it feels very Prothean.
Yeah, and I would just say, like, from a narrative standpoint, it is always that fun moment where it's like the thing you were always looking for is the thing that's sitting right in front of you the whole time. Like, there is always that, like, so I was definitely, like, I don't want to say annoyed that's like, we're doing this again with the stupid Citadel. Yeah. But at the same time, it gets just so cool how our thought of what that structure was keeps evolving and keeps changing, and it felt like it all started there, like then it all kind of ends there.
Totally. I mean, the Citadel is the first place you go after Eden Prime, so it's been a fixture since the beginning of this series.
It's been an important location in all 3 games.
But yeah, so we find out that not only is the Citadel the catalyst, but we also find out the Elusive Man has given that information away to the Reapers, and the Reapers have taken it to Earth. They just picked up and moved the Citadel.
I'm not indoctrinated by the Reapers. I just told them where to find the thing that they want.
I just love to think in his head, it's like, haha, I got them right where I want them. It's like, what? What are you doing? Exactly.
So stupid.
And so this is when we get to that moment that Mark was alluding to, that the Prothean VI is like, but that said, like, let's call it quits. There's nothing you can do. You're done. Let's pack it up. Let's save this data for the next cycle, and hopefully they'll stop the Reapers. And Shepard's just staunchly like, no, I've come too far. I'm not giving up. We're gonna go to Earth with the Crucible, and we're going to get the Citadel back.
And I think the Renegade choice in that is like awesome, where he's just like,
you guys are skipping something.
Oh, we are.
Oh, we skipped something.
I'm so too eager.
The Kai Lang fight.
Oh, does that happen before this?
The Kai Lang fight does happen before both of the Renegade triggers. The Renegade triggers are one after the other.
We dispose of this ninja boy very quickly.
This fight fucking sucked. It made me so angry. Not because it was difficult, because it wasn't. As a matter of fact, it was so easy. I killed Kai Lang immediately, and the game didn't know what to do.
It's one of those things where, especially like for these type of games, where it's like, okay, we should have a boss fight, but the game structure doesn't really work for that in terms of mechanics. No. Like, I guess, it was nice because from my memory of it, it's like the ground is breaking, so then you have cover there. The game is all based on moving and cover, and you're just all basically, for the most part, out in the open, just shooting each other. It felt very,
Well, I also love that Kai Lang blows up the floor to provide cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
which is also
let's
dumb.
make this more dynamic. We need stuff here.
I kill Kai Lang, like, pretty quickly, and then the game is just like, I did not anticipate you doing that so fast. I'm broken now.
Oh, no.
And just glitched on me. I had to do this fight like 4 times. Also, if he gets up on you too fast, you have to, like, mash the B button, the melee button, in order to escape. And when I was doing that the first couple of times, it wasn't doing anything. I wasn't escaping. And, like, I couldn't figure out what button I was supposed to push if it wasn't the B button. If it wasn't the B button, what was I supposed to do? And I was getting very worked up and very upset. And, like, I almost cried because this made me so frustrated. Because I just wanted to kill this stupid man.
This is like the opposite of get good. It's like, you're too good, get worse. So this will go at
Why am I being punished for being effective? I was so angry. But finally, like, I took it slower, and I was like, fine, I will not focus fire on Kai Lang, even though that is the obvious thing to do. I will work on killing the other characters that have come in to interfere with this fight. That's fine. I'll just kill all the Cerberus soldiers, and then wait until there are no more Cerberus soldiers to kill, and then I have to kill Kai Lang. And it better work! And it did.
And so... everything MJ said is absolutely true. And also, I feel like all of the final bosses have been pretty lackluster. I feel like Mass Effect 2 did it the best. Because this is ostensibly the final boss, sort of, or the second to last boss. I can't remember if we fight anything big on Earth. I don't think so, though.
There's like a wave fight, I remember.
Right.
Very vividly, like, in Sanity Mode, because it was such a pain. But it wasn't like, this is the big bad.
This is the big bad. This is the moment. And it's just, Kai Lang has been a disappointment from the moment we met him. And it continues to be here.
List all the ways you've disappointed me through this game.
He's the worst.
But after we defeat him, Shepard, of course, goes to sit down at the terminal to try and they can figure out what they need to know so they can wrap stuff up. And we have the tropiest trope to end all tropes, the bad guy's not really dead. Not too long ago, MJ put out a call on TikTok about renegade choices that you always make.
This is true.
I had trouble picking one, but renegade triggers that I always pick is this one.
This is a good one.
There's never a time when I don't pick this. So what happens is Kai Lang's about to strike you, and if you hit the renegade trigger, you spin around, smashing his sword, and then you pull out your Omni Blade and stab him to kill him, and then say, "That's for Thane, you son of a bitch."
It's perfect.
Ultimately, if somehow you fucked up and Miranda also died, you say that's for Thane and Miranda.
And Miranda. Oh, wow.
Thane
I didn't know that.
and Miranda.
It's just such a satisfying moment, and it's like one of the most cinematic moments. Like, it's very action movie, right? Like, he spins and breaks the blade. It's all slow motion, stab. It's a very cool moment that I'll never not take, because I don't feel like that's a renegade action. I feel like that's I'm standing up for what I believe in action, you know?
See, it's not even the action. I think it's the language that he uses, or she uses. It's really the cursing.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's what made it renegade.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of cursing in the trilogy. There were 1, 2 every so often. Like, one person would just say fuck at a very like well-timed moment, but really
Gives them more weight. It gives that son of a bitch
Yeah.
a weight.
it really does, because Shepard doesn't curse that much.
No, does not.
And then there is the renegade trigger after that of telling Vendetta, like, we'll do it.
Yeah.
You can keep talking, but I'm leaving now. I'm off to go do the thing.
Yeah, if you don't, I didn't take that renegade trigger. So if you don't, there's a Paragon trigger, and you do the hopeful version. You go, you know, I have to believe this will work, and we will get it done. Blah blah blah. You do the hopeful, more polite version of the same thing, essentially, to tell.
Nope, I'm mad now. I had to deal with Kai Lang. I'm done.
And that's pretty much the end of the mission. We go back to the ship and have a chat with our favorite leader of the Crucible. We pretty much let Admiral Hackett know what happened, and
We fill in the Dadmiral.
And we fill in the Dadmiral and let him know what we need to do.
The Dadmiral.
We'll be
That's
seeing
great.
him soon. The Dadmiral, yeah, that's what we call him. And yeah, so that's it for this mission. The next mission, we'll talk about the next mission in just a minute, but we're getting towards the end. Before all of that, though, we do have Fandom Corner, and MJ has prepared a focus on the Mass Effect TikTok community.
Yes, Fandom Corner is such a wonderful place. Lately, I have been trying to get more active on TikTok. It's hard when your spouse is TikTok famous. It feels like, what's the point? He's already cornered the market on being TikTok famous in this house. I'll never be TikTok famous. That's fine. What I would like, however, is for people who like Mass Effect to talk to me. That's what I want. So I've been posting a lot of videos lately of, like, Matt mentioned, what's a renegade option that you always choose? Like, what's a renegade decision you always make? For me, it is leaving Jacob's father behind with a half-charged gun. Also, even if you're doing a renegade run, what's a Paragon option that you feel you always should take? And for me, it's hugging Tally. I also did one about NPCs you want to know more about. And hopefully I will keep this series going to try and generate more conversation. And because I have been doing this more, I have met lots of people in the TikTok Mass Effect community. Lavalum, who is also a Dragon Age fan in addition to being a Mass Effect fan. They joined our Discord recently. They're very sweet. I really enjoy their content. We also have Deep Roads Duncan, who posts hot takes all the time. Alison Draste, who is also both Dragon Age and Mass Effect. And we also have Frostforge Cosplay, who cosplays both Femshep and Garrus.
It's amazing.
And I love them. And one day...
Shows a range.
It's such a range. One day, when I have energy, I will do my Shepard cosplay and duet those Garrus videos. One day. There's a lot of really great content being made, as well as some compelling discourse. If you're on TikTok, definitely follow these creators. Tell us about other creators that you found, people who are talking about your favorite games and who are putting out some good content, because we want to follow them too. And if you do follow any of these people, tell them that Reignite sent you.
Yeah. Tell them we exist. Tell them check out the pod. Be our spies on TikTok. Spread the good word of Reignite.
All right. Mark, it's time for an icebreaker. Pick a character.
Oh boy. Any character?
Any character.
Almost any character. I'll tell you
Any
if you're
character.
out of line.
I'll go with the criminally underrated Jack, who is probably one of the best characters in the whole game, and I feel like she doesn't get enough play. But anyway, Jack.
All right.
We love Jack here.
So here's the
Good.
question. Do you have any tattoos?
Several. And that's always a funny thing too when I wear a shirt where they show, like, my students are like, you have a tattoo? Because I don't come off as a person with a tattoo. I have, on my wrist, I have PlayStation buttons for my Sony fandom.
Nerd.
My first one I had on my back is the same one Brandon Boyd from Incubus has over here. It's the Omani Padi Hum one over there. And then my most embarrassing tattoo is, it's wrong arm, I have the Final Fantasy VIII, probably the worst of them all, the Lionheart thing. I don't know why. I liked it. I hate it, but it's on me permanently. I have... it was done, I'll say. And I mean, not well done. I have another Incubus one. I have the Light Grenade, which is a little customized on my thing. Me and Dave Grima, my buddy, both have Chrono Trigger tattoos.
Nice.
Of the little clock.
That's
and
cute.
His is player 1 and mine's player 2. And a little arrow on the bottom.
Aww.
Adorbs. We're just so close.
That's so cute.
And then my most obscure one I have over here. I won't flash you guys right now, but very, very obscure game for PS3, Folklore. Not a lot of people have played it. I loved it. And it's like one of the characters, and he's like sitting there with his coat, and it's like flaming out. It's very cool. And then my good buddy Dan Colonna has been drawing a tattoo for me for 2 years now, and he's gonna finish it real soon because he keeps telling me that he's gonna. So if Dan, if you're listening,
he's not gonna listen.
If you know Dan Colonna at Dan O'Mac on PlayStation,
on Twitter,
tweet him. Finish Mark's tattoo. He wants it.
Hashtag finish Mark's tattoo.
I have it already planned out to be based on
finish Mark's tattoo.
It's 3 leaves. It's gonna go right here. I just need him to draw it. But that's another story altogether.
That's gonna be the hashtag for this episode's tweet. Actually, that might be the name of this episode.
Whatever
Mark's tattoo.
it takes at Dan O'Mac. Tweet at him. Get it done, crowd.
Matt and I have answered this before, but I'm going to twist it. Matt, if you had any desire to get a tattoo, what kind of tattoo would it be?
The short answer would be none, because I don't like needles and I never want to.
Imagine that needles are not part of it. Just forget that needles exist. Pretend that I could draw it on you with Sharpie. Come on.
That's all it is.
I would probably get the Masamune from Chrono Trigger, or I would possibly get a Moogle or a Chocobo. I don't know which design. Because I've liked a bunch of different Moogle designs. I might get the chunky Moogle that Cat Chi rides in 7, because I like that chunky Moogle. Or I would probably, I don't know, it's tough, because also part of me is like, I'm really close to song lyrics and I'm a music nerd, but like, that's permanent, right? And so I feel like putting, like, as you get older, like, I love the song Stellar by Incubus, and I still do, but like, it was a love song to me as a kid, and now I'm like, oh no, this is kind of cheesy and a little gross. It's not a great love song, that kind of thing. So I don't know, but I would probably, any of those tattoos would be the ones I'd get if I got one. What about you, MJ?
Well, I do have tattoos, as I've mentioned.
Right.
One is dedicated to my favorite book series, and the other is dedicated to one of my favorite books and movies. And I am talking about getting an Omniblade on my forearm, but also
That's a cool
my
one.
spouse and I.
That's for a big.
Yeah, probably here-ish, but I don't know how big I would want it. We'll see. I have a tattoo artist. She's amazing. Her name is Kate, and she currently works out of Albany, but hopefully she'll be moving down here to New Jersey, which will be more convenient for me. But my spouse and I are talking about getting complementary tattoos, because we don't like the idea of having something that matches exactly, because we are not the same person. We complement each other. So we would want something that shows that. We have very sun and moon energy, very Hades Persephone. So we're very stereotypical people. We'll figure it out.
Very stereotypical, very Hades Persephone, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. But if anybody has suggestions for complimentary tattoos that me and my spouse could get, you should send them to me.
Let's do it. Send them to her. Don't send them to me, though, because I don't want a tattoo. We are going to wrap up the show now. Our next episode is the final mission We are going to wrap up Mass Effect 3 with this next episode, which I'm actually getting emotional saying, which I didn't think I would.
This is like the end of a very long road for you two.
Yeah.
This is doing it.
Yep. It's going to be the final mission of the game, our final mission of this trilogy playthrough, Priority Earth, with the incredible Kate Sanchez of But Why Though, a giant Mass Effect nerd, and has become one of my favorite humans on Twitter. I'm very excited for her to join us on this again, our final mission of the trilogy. So we will see you then. Wow, it's exciting.
Don't worry, we are not going to just disappear in our actual last episode of the season. We're going to talk about the game as a whole. We're going to talk about our plans for the future. And also, we're going to take a break. We're very tired. We did this for 3 years.
Yes. But there'll be more info on that in the final episode of the season. We are going to have more TTRPG stuff coming after the end of the season as well. That's in the works. So
more
stay tuned for all of that. But for now, I want to thank our incredible guest, Mark Magro. Mark, I'm a big fan of all the stuff that you do. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. It was fun times talking the Mass Effect with you guys.
The Mass Effect. I love how you get like faux Italian when you talk about
and if anyone listens to the Dinosaur Shits podcast, it's a running joke that I turn into my father at the end of every episode because I get tired. And when I'm tired, I turn into my father.
But why don't you tell folks where they can find you and your stuff on the internet?
I am on the social medias, but I'm not super frequent in terms of posting. When I do, usually it's something big. But you can always connect with me on Twitter. I'm at MagroCrag. And you can, if you liked the words that I said, every other week we have the Dinosaur Machines Game Club podcast. The next episode coming up for is actually Hades, which we brought up, that will be dropping.
Yes.
We release every other week. We take game suggestions. We take voice messages. So if I didn't bore you, you could connect with me on there. We can talk more games because games are fun.
Yes, they are. Thanks. Awesome.
So before we get going, we did actually get a new review, and we're really excited to share it with you. Matt, why don't you read that out?
Sure. This is from Mads, M-A-D, and then 3 S's. So thanks, Mads. Have heard Matt do other events and podcasts. And so when I found out that he did a Mass Effect podcast, I was so excited, all capital letters. Please go listen for hilarious antics matched with true knowledge and passion for the games. This is Maddie. I know Maddie through the burlesque scene. She's a delight. And thank you for writing this review, Mads. Appreciate it.
If you like what you heard here, you can follow us on social media. We're at ReignitePod on Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram, Facebook.com/ReignitePod, or you can send us an email at reignitepod@gmail.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcatcher. Like Mads did, it can help us get seen so other people can find us.
We're also members of the Certain POV podcast network. You can visit certainpov.com to find more nerdy podcasts, each with a unique point of view. You can also find a permanent invite link to our Discord server on that website. You can join in the conversation. Unfortunately, keeping spoilers from me about Shore Leave is over because we have played it, but how I have yet to start Andromeda, so there's still discussion to be had at my expense until we start. Feel free to join in. We also have tons of conversations about comic books, TV, movies, other video games.
Yes.
Please come hang out with
Join
us.
our community. Matt and I work on some other projects. I would like to take a moment to talk about Archives of the Dragon. We have just launched a new show, and I'm on it. It's called Project Trailblazer. It's set in the aftermath of Andromeda. 3 aliens and 1 AI must work together to explore the unknown beyond the Helios cluster. It's a grand adventure with plenty of humor and heart, and you can check that out every other Monday on twitch.tv/Archives of the Dragon.
I do a bunch of different stuff as time allows. Lately, I've been doing a lot of streaming. I'm a featured Fuser streamer. I usually stream for 2 or 3 hours and featured on their page. I've also been streaming on the Diamond stage, which is a new stage that you can tune into within the game of Fuser if you want to watch people DJ and don't feel like DJing on your own. That said, if you want to check out the other things I'm doing, you can go to www.djstormageddon.com. My other podcasts are there. My merch store is there. My Ko-fi if you want to buy me a coffee. All of that stuff you can find, again, djstormageddon.com.
We'd like to thank Red Spinks for our It's Okay to Be a Marshmallow t-shirt on Redbubble featuring our favorite toasted marshmallow, Kaden Alenko. You can find more of his work at Chaos Does Art on Instagram.
We'd also like to thank the incredible Carter's husband for developing more amazing shirts, and you can find those shirts at certainpov.com or on the Certain POV Teespring.
Thank you to David Boyle for designing our logo, which you can also get on a shirt through Redbubble. And finally, thank you to Dan Bull for letting us use the Mass Effect rap for our theme music. Your time is coming to an end, and we honor you.
We do, but maybe we'll come back to you for Dragon Age. We'll see.
I'm MJ.
And I am Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
And I'm Mark Magro. We should go.
You're listening to Reignite. I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite podcast on the Citadel.
Video games are a unique medium.
They can tell stories,
Immerse us in strange, fantastic worlds.
blur the very boundaries of our reality.
But at the end of the day, video games are fun. Whatever fun is to you.
I'm Jeff Moonen,
And I am Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
and on Fun and Games, we talk about the history, trends, and community of video games.
It's a celebration of all the games we play and all the fun we find within them.
And there's so many more games out there, so we hope you'll share in that conversation with us.
Fun and Games podcast with Matt and Jeff. Find us on certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
And happy gaming.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.